Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Startup Network podcast. Joining me today is Ola Jewusiak, VP of Marketing at Jump Capital. At Jump, she leads brand, website, content, and events, and regularly advises founders on how to tell their story when it matters most. Ola, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Good to be
Hey,
here.
yeah, thank you for being here. For our listeners, Ola's very impressive bio is in the show notes for full briefing, but Ola would love to kick things off by having you share more about who you are and what you do.
My gosh, that is such a broad-based question. My first thought is tell them that I did Polish folk dancing. I did, by the way. You know what? I became a marketer and I came by it a very honest way in that I never planned on being a marketer. I think that might be the best way to do it, but I'm biased. Uh, I originally went to school for political science and journalism and comm studies. So I always loved the opportunity to tell stories, and I've always enjoyed narrative. But when I was coming out of college, my focus was politics. But
Mhm.
I also came out of college into the Great Recession. So my focus quickly became paying my bills and my student loan debt. And I fell into marketing and specifically within financial services. And it's been a really lovely fit because I think that I am creative enough that I do well in a structured setting that lets me color outside the lines. And financial services, in order to be successful from a creative standpoint, you need to be willing to let people color outside the lines.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that phrasing. And especially what you mentioned too. I think it's so unique that you originally weren't anticipating going into career in marketing, but now it must be so, I guess, gratifying to look back on how far you've come in that sense, and I'm sure it's been rewarding throughout that time.
Everybody always says that everything is sales, and that's true. That's undeniably true. But I think everything you do in one form or another, if it has an aspect of sales to it, it has an aspect of marketing.
Hmm.
So looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, I was always doing something that would inform my true quote unquote marketing jobs. But I mean, I managed, I was part of the Go Forward team. I managed events. I got the opportunity to like write speeches for candidates, not the presidential ones, guys. But I got a chance to like build that narrative, and yeah, it
Yeah.
all came together into the skill set that I have here. So it's
Oh
cool.
my gosh. Yeah. And so what led you from politics to venture capital?
My gosh, that's such a long story. Uh, so first things first, I didn't know about venture capital when I was young. Um, I don't think many people do, or rather, those that do are already connected to it in some form or fashion. I started working in politics, and I did national politics. I started with presidential campaigns because I attended the University of Iowa when Iowa was the first state in the caucus before New Hampshire took that from the state. Uh, so I started in campaigns, went into like state and local. And I just, I'm gonna level with you. I really wanted to have a job that allowed me to pay my rent in
Mhm.
one paycheck.
Yeah.
I really did. And I fell into a role that ended up being kind of a dream role because I worked directly for the regional CEO of a large bank that was expanding into the Chicago area. Um, and he took me under his wing. He was a really excellent mentor, and I was surrounded by people who were kind of willing to show me the ropes
Mhm.
and treat me well. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't fallen into that role, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
of it was kind of serendipity in a way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you were working for that CEO, what then tradition or transitioned you to Jump? Like, would love to hear how
Oh
that came
gosh,
about.
sorry. You know what? From there, I spent time at a startup. And while I was working at the startup, that's when I became more familiar with VC because I was part of the leadership team, and we were pitching for our next series, our Series C. Uh, from there, I hopped into investment banking. And from investment banking, I hopped over to venture capital. And
Mhm.
when I said serendipity before, and like, honest to goodness, I'm like fully in the camp of serendipity. Like so many things happened that I wasn't planning on happening. I wasn't necessarily seeking it out, which I'm so sorry for the people who are. I'd been at the investment banking firm for several years at that point, and I wasn't necessarily looking to leave. A really good friend of mine was interviewing, and she told me that she'd met with a really cool recruiter and she thought we would hit it off. So I met with that recruiter, and our 15-minute conversation was like turned into 45 minutes or an hour. And at the end of that meeting, she was like, well, I basically focus on HR and admin, so I'm probably never going to have a job for you. But now that we've had this long convo, if anything ever crosses my desk, I'll know that you'd be willing to leave for venture.
Mhm.
I was like, okay. And 7 days later, she sent me a message and was like, I think I found your job.
Oh my gosh.
And it turns out that the leadership team at Jump Capital had been looking to fill their marketing position for a little under a year at that point, or maybe a little over. Everyone always gives me different timing. And such one of the co-founders of the firm had grabbed dinner with the owner of the recruiting firm a couple days after I met with Molly, the recruiter. And after that dinner, she came in and did like a whole thing, was like, hey, this is a good friend of mine. If I know that most of you don't have the marketing beat, but if you know any good marketers, like send it their way and we'll get them connected. And that is quite literally how I got the job.
Oh my
Like, I
gosh.
mean, just truly serendipitous. There's no other way to describe it. I met with such I had a wonderful conversation with him. And then, in true venture capital fashion, we continued to have conversations for like, I think 6 months. Yeah, venture has to stop doing that. But luckily for me, I really wasn't looking to leave, right? So these conversations were
Yeah.
fun.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't have bills like pressing down, right? Uh, it's not an ideal model for other candidates, though. Not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I love that story because exactly what you said, it's so serendipitous. And I think it's a really good example of how you never know
No.
how the people that you meet in your life are going to positively impact your career, your life, your outcome in some way. And so I just love that story because I always think it's so important to build relationships and have a community and meet new people because it can open doors that might not have happened otherwise or likely
Oh my
wouldn't have
gosh,
happened otherwise.
absolutely. Like when I was younger, I really hated networking events. And I
Mhm.
can't look, I still hate networking events. I think everyone does in some form,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, but one friend of mine who is just so good at it, right? I asked him how he prepares for them, and he goes, oh, I don't think about it as a networking event. I just think like, oh, I might meet a new friend today.
Mm.
And it's such a simple shift of mindset, but it really does help me. And it's so kooky. I get it. But now I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna meet like a new friend or a new contact, and that person can help someone I already know. Like
Mhm.
you never know when you get to be the connector, and you also never know when you get to be connected. Like
Right.
it's like even how you and I met. Like you
Mhm.
just there's so many different avenues, and yeah, being kind and always, not always saying yes, but like just say yes to meet the person. You never know.
Yes, 100%. And
Yeah.
so now that you've been a part of Jump Capital, I'd love to hear more about what your role entails because I know you wear so many different hats, which I think is so fun. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners an overview of what your day-to-day looks like.
Oh, okay. So I'm a generalist marketer, and I think the other term that's being bandied about for that is full stack. It's an either or situation. I am a generalist because I kind of had to be. I've always worked at organizations where the marketing function was pretty lean, and if I wasn't a team of one, then I was a team of two or three. And as a consequence of that, you just end up learning a little bit of everything or a lot of everything
Mhm.
because somehow the campaigns need to be done and someone needs to figure out the integration with the open API. So it might as well be you.
Yeah.
And usually it's also thanks to YouTube. Um, like just the best, man. Go YouTube. Uh, so as a result of that, though, I never really specialized in anything. And at the time when I was younger, that was often held against me. Um, and I feel so badly for folks that ended up building niches and now in the workforce or the labor force that is currently being built out, like it's clear that having more generalist qualities is helpful because people want to see that you're well-rounded and it's in direct conflict with what people were being told 10 years ago. So
Mhm.
it's frustrating for me to watch other folks I know that are in marketing who've spent, the majority of their career really focusing on SEO optimization or even digital campaigns, and suddenly they're being told that that level of expertise isn't enough, right? It's a total side tangent conversation, but it's hard. I'm
Mhm.
sorry to everyone who's dealing with it. But because of my generalist background, when I got picked up, it was entirely because we needed somebody that could be lean and mean and mighty, right? But we also needed someone that had sat in the seat of a founder and their founding marketer, if they even have one, to really talk to them about strategy and what they want, what they need, et cetera. Because oftentimes, I think this happens to all of us, but it's really easy to become myopic and either overcomplicate something or get stuck on an idea that you believe in that others don't
Mhm.
necessarily, right? So there's a lot of conversations about like, who is this for? Who are we talking to? Why? Why are we doing that? Is this the best way to reach the people you want to talk to? Et cetera, et cetera. And there's so many things that are like really quickly shifting on the landscape, right? Like the way that you did PR 2 years ago is different than the PR that you're doing now. I think for most of our for most of our founders, um, yeah, most of our founders, it's still really exciting to be in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. But chances are, if you get them an exclusive with Wall Street Journal and New York Times, that's great. But a trade magazine might be the better fit,
Yeah.
right? That might actually get them in front of the right audience. You don't
Mhm.
know. Which is to say, I have not fully answered your question, and I'm sorry. But my day changes. I get to work with our founders on PR. I get to work with them on, I've worked with a couple on website projects. I've gotten an opportunity to just kind of act as a advisor or a consultant to kind of give my third perspective, which I think is super valuable. I am often working with my investment team. We're either building out a content calendar or a LinkedIn strategy or an event strategy that is specific to different geos where we're trying to expand our brand and our like brand awareness. There's just a lot that happens from day to day, and today is a kind of a slow day, which is nice.
Mhm.
I haven't had many the last few weeks, but the slow days are really great because it gives me an opportunity to go through my notes and see how many things remain uncrossed. Uh,
Yeah.
And I hesitate to do that today, but it's gonna happen.
One of the things that I
Uh,
think is the most interesting about your role is that it sounds like two-pronged. Like you get to do marketing for the VC firm, but you also get to help with marketing for your portfolio companies. And
yes,
so that must be really awesome because you have your hands in so many different industries and projects and
yeah.
levels of companies,
You
which
don't
is
get
so
bored.
cool. Exactly.
Well, and it's kind of like what you said when we initially met, right? You said that you can't imagine being in-house for just one brand. And I think that this role is kind of the best marriage
Hmm.
of, yes, I'm technically in charge of one brand, and that's Jump Capital, but at the same token, I also get to be a part of strategic conversations or even just unveilings with different founders, and that's really neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And one thing I want to go back to that you brought up that I think is really important right now, which is you mentioned that you said PR is changing and marketing is changing, which is
Okay.
huge. And a lot of these portfolio companies and startups are seeing this. And so, with you being so in the weeds and in the day-to-day with supporting marketing strategies, what are you seeing right now that is working really well or moving the needle?
CEOs across boardrooms are being told that they need to take up AI. And what that means continues to be amorphous. How to do it is even more so. I think most people at this stage of the adoption curve are still figuring things out. And I'm not saying that there aren't companies and startups that aren't just stand out incredible champions of agentic AI, but for the majority of people, I think we're still in the like test and have fun with it, experiment, see what works, what doesn't, particularly as these tools get even more and more sophisticated, right? So there's that.
Hmm.
I think that there's a lot of opportunity for go-to-market tooling using AI. I think that, in my opinion, the back end of sales is probably one of the most valuable places where AI could plug and play because I'm about to make some like very broad generalizations of sales and marketing people, but this is my soapbox.
Yeah.
Um, so salespeople, not great at administration most of the time. If you are, you're awesome. Your marketer loves you.
You're a
Most are.
unicorn.
You are a special unicorn. I used to, oh, the things I would have to do to get people to fill out an update our CRMs, man. Um, it's like bringing me back in a bad way. But I think that there's so much opportunity in using like AI to properly connect all of the back end, right? So not only do you have an opportunity to see the conversations that sales is having with them, particularly before and after the sale is closed, because chances are, if you are a small enough organization, you're not going to hand them off to an account manager. Your salesperson might just stay their account manager if you're early enough in
Mhm.
your company journey. Like having the opportunity to keep it all in one place where reminders pop up, where product can see the direct conversations or get pinged if product is mentioned or customer success is pinged. That's, in my opinion, the dream, right? Because that was always what we were going for. And 10 years ago, when I was still building out like an SDR function, I just remember the huge amount of tools that was necessary, and Zapier could only do so much because most companies are not truly willing to give you a real open API with bidirectional communication. So, like, you are getting what you get, but you can't do more than that, right? So, it
Yeah.
always left you wanting because the best option was never that great, and you were still at the mercy of your sales team filling out their damn notes, right?
Yeah.
Um, and now that's not the case anymore,
Hmm.
right? It's just not. On the other hand, in terms of the other side of the coin, I am seeing a huge, huge level of fatigue and repudiation of AI. I think people are just tired of seeing it and reading about it and having every LinkedIn post talk about, how amazing AI is. And as a consequence of that, I'm seeing a huge amount of people really pushing for events and in-person events
Yes.
where people are congregating, where they're looking for connection, where they want to build community. I'm seeing a lot of people really push for experiential events, particularly those that require you to like leave your phone behind.
Mhm.
Um, it's an interesting repudiation because it kind of reinforces the human element, and I don't think that was the aim
Mhm.
of all of this, but it is what's happening. Um, so what I've found is like so much of my job is event focused or event based. We're constantly looking to gather, if not founders and operators, then certainly fellow investors, to build that community, to have kind of like intellectual salons where we communicate and talk about things that are on our mind. And there's more hunger for that than ever before. And I really do think that it's because of AI. I do.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I'm noticing too that there's a huge trend in like artisanal experiences, people having the opportunity to create something with their hands. And again, I do think that that's in direct contrast to AI, right?
Mhm.
Because we're focusing on the things that we can do. Um, so it's a give and take. I'm a huge fan of AI. I use it every day, truly. I have a lot of fun building agents and seeing what they can and can't do. I am not an expert. I don't know many who are, right? Um, but it's still not a perfect end product. No matter what you do, no matter how well your prompts are communicated, you still end up adding in that human element or that texture. Much to the chagrin of my entire team, I prefer human writing to AI writing. I think it's very clear when it's AI. You can only have so many em dashes and start your sentences with and so many times before I
Yeah.
can lie what you've written, you
Or
know?
say, it's not this, it's that.
Ugh. Yes. And you know what sucks about this? First of all, I'm a millennial. I love the M dash.
Me
I'm
too.
so upset. I'm so upset. Like, isn't that terrible? They've taken it away from us. And I'm a former debater. So I won two and three everything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now when I write a LinkedIn post, I have to stand back and be like, does this look like AI wrote it? Because I kind of write like AI, and that's terrible. Because I do,
Yeah.
I love me an M dash. I do. It's so good.
Oh my
And now
gosh.
it's been kind of ruined. But it's like one M dash is okay. That's what I tell
Yes.
you. Right? Like three egregious. It's like, was it Coco Chanel who was like, before you leave for the day, you should look in the mirror and take off one thing. That's how you can be chic, right? And now I'm like, read through that post and decide, are there too many M dashes? Do you need to remove?
I love that. But it's so true. And what you shared, like you were speaking to my soul with some of the things that you mentioned are so important. Like the first one being that I've always said this, I feel like marketing cannot and should not operate in a silo. You nailed it perfectly where you said it needs to know what product is saying. It needs to know what's happening with customer success, with sales, with leadership. Like marketing cannot operate on its own
No.
and be expected to be successful.
Well, not to mention that as soon as shit goes down, the department that's always blamed first is marketing. And I get it.
Yes.
We are the external, what we work on is external facing. I absolutely understand it, but the foundation of what we work on has to be strong, and that means that we can't be working in a silo.
Yep. Marketing
Yeah.
can't market a shitty product. That's what I always
No,
say.
no. And if you are marketing a shitty product, your customer success team will call you a weaver of lies. And that's not fun either, you know?
I know.
There's no like just everyone should communicate
Yes.
and here's the thing, right? Like I do think that AI can help us better communicate because it's often been a game of telephone. And I'm really not
Yes.
trying to like rag on sales. But if you are not inputting your notes, and I understand like everything we do nowadays is so fast. The last thing you want to do when you are thinking about the next prospect call is sit down and write out, like, I don't know, 15, 20 lines of text. But it's so important. And to have products out there that automatically do that for you and synthesize it and allow you to highlight the most important parts, and then the rest of your team can see it. That's, I mean, that's incredible. That's the
Yeah.
dream.
Hmm.
And there's even
Absolutely.
more that you can do, but like just that alone is such a huge difference maker for so many teams. Because I think that oftentimes, like, it's not just sales, customer success forgets to put in everything, notably the
Mhm.
complaints, right? Nobody wants to include the complaints in the CRM. And it's the complaints that help your product team,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
But yeah, that's a really great use case for using AI. And it reminds me of a quote that I read probably a year ago that I really resonate with. And I feel like you will too if you haven't heard it yet. But it's something along the lines of AI is not meant to do work, is not meant to do creative work for mundane people. It's meant to do mundane work for creative people. Basically
Yes.
saying like it's supposed to take that tedious stuff like the note taking, summarizing, etc., and autopilot it for you so you can focus on that creative work. It's not meant to replace that creative work.
And also, you can tell when the creative work has been done by AI.
Hmm.
It's just not there yet.
Yeah.
Will it be? I don't know. I do put a premium on human creativity. And again, that's probably just because of what I do for a living. But
Hmm.
like, even when I remember the first time, this was even before ChatGPT truly came out. Like, we were just playing around with a chat bot at work, and my boss and I were sending each other stories back and forth that we'd prompted, and they were terrible, right? Like, do you remember how bad they were?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like fairy tale stories, ridiculous. Um, and it like, look, the technology has moved so quickly, and that's incredible. But I still don't think that the creative work that is the output of AI is truly creative because it effectively is building on the works that it's been trained on, right?
Hmm.
If I ask you to write me something in iambic pentameter, it's going to do it, but it's only because it's already ingested all of Shakespeare,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so just that use of AI, I think is what a great point that you mentioned earlier that people are exhausted by it and they are craving those in-person experiences. And to have like truly human to human conversations and relationships and not something that makes you question, like, is this AI or is it not? So I love that you shared that because events are big and just human in-person connections are huge.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think too, like post COVID, there was a huge amount of interest in events, but I've
Hmm.
definitely noticed a surge of like positive attribution rates like in the last couple of months, and I really do attribute it to AI. I just think that people want to be out amongst people. Plus, we're talking in the spring too, and I'm in Chicago, so you know, some of us hibernate for the winter, but people were coming out even in the winter. Like I'm
Hmm.
telling you, I think that there's definitely been a huge push for folks to have that person-to-person contact for sure. I'm with you.
Totally.
You're right.
Yeah. And a question I have for you, would love to pick your brain on this. For any early stage founders who are really starting to think through their marketing, what have you seen as like kind of the non-negotiables that are important for them? I think that's one thing that can be overwhelming for founders is just there's so many avenues and channels of marketing. It's like, how do I know which one to prioritize? So, what would you say is kind of the best view to start with?
I think it's super subjective and relative to the industry, the product, and the audience or the demographic that you are selling to, right?
Hmm.
And I think too often, particularly when you're early stage, there's a lot of vision, but there may not be as much strategy, and there may not be as much execution either. So it becomes a question of starting at the ground level.
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of going and speaking with customers, just the founder, maybe someone to take notes if you don't have an AI transcriber, right? But having those conversations with customers that could be positive and at times difficult to understand where they were when you initially began speaking to them, what problem they were looking to solve, what was compelling about the product and why they signed on the dotted line, and what has been positive about their experience so far and what hasn't been. I think having those conversations is a non-negotiable. All founders should do it. But when you're actually trying to identify what marketing strategy you should build, those are the conversations that you should have, right? And
Mhm.
there should be marketing and sales involved, right? Too often you hear marketing, but you don't necessarily hear sales. And I hate the terms marketing, but like really the two go hand in hand, in my opinion. So having that conversation, having a better understanding of who it is that you're selling to, what pain points are you solving, what pain points are there to solve? Is it the same from customer to customer? It's going to give you a better understanding of not just your marketing and sales strategy, but also your product roadmap.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big believer in these convos. And if you do this right and you make this a back and forth type of conversation, then it's going to directly in like it's going to point you in the right direction of like, do I go to conferences? What conferences?
Mhm.
Should I do my own in-house events? Why and for who? Does content matter for us? And what kind of content is it? Am I going to do thought leadership white papers, or am I going to do thought leadership on LinkedIn, or are we going to go balls to the wall and have a good time on TikTok,
Mhm.
right? It's going to allow you to determine whether pay for play opportunities, whether it's PR or like pay per click, whatever. And I'm so sorry to the PR folks, you are not the same as pay per click. You are important and I love you all. Um, I misspoke. But like if those are channels that are worth using, because I think like let's actually talk about PR for a second. I think PR could be really, really it could be so good if it's done well and if it's done right. But if you don't have the answers for everything that I just mentioned, PR isn't going to help you.
Yeah.
Because then all they're doing is selling you as a founder and you're not the product,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
if you are the product, that's not going to help your product get better, in my opinion. So, um, that was a circuitous way of answering that question, but I hope I did.
No, but you nailed it. Yeah, you basically said speak to your customers, know what they want, because it's a good reminder that what you think your customers want isn't always what they want. Like you
How many
have to
times have
hear
you
that.
how many times have you been in a situation where you're being told one thing and then you talk to a customer and you're like, huh,
So
do you
many.
also have miscommunications in your personal life? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
no
really
one,
important.
and no one look, I get it. No one likes to be told that something could be better, especially if it's something that you've been working on night and day for years. But I'm telling you, if you don't have those conversations, you're not going to really have a better understanding of what it is that's successful about your product and what could make it more successful. Like
Yeah.
on the Jump Capital side, we talk about our portfolio companies, and so many companies have decided to make pivots. And their pivots, the ones that were informed by their customers, are the ones that have often been more successful.
Hmm.
And there's a reason
Absolutely.
for that.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And a question for you, for anyone who's listening who is interested in getting into venture capital. And I think it's especially interesting that you started at a startup and then went into venture capital. I see that happening a lot across the tech
Mhm.
ecosystem. For someone who's listening to this episode who's in a similar place, who's thinking of jumping from working for a startup to working for VC, what advice would you give them?
Say yes to a random recruiter connection that your friend recommends. Um, Shout out Elena and Molly. Venture is it is a hard industry to break into, right? That's why you're asking me for this advice, because it's notoriously difficult. The way that it's been described to me, and this resonates deeply. It is very much a gated community, but once you're within the gates, this is the friendliest, most collaborative community that I've ever had the good fortune to work in, which is wonderful, right? Um, but that being said, since I found my way into this industry, and yes, I wanted to do it, but I really didn't know how.
Mm.
Really. Like at the end of the day, had I not had this conversation with Molly, I'm not sure if I would be in venture right now or if it would still be like a far off dream. or a
Yeah.
far off goal. But that being said, now that I'm in it, I am aware of things that you can do. So I'm super excited to talk about that. So there's actually three different things that people can do if they're interested in working in venture capital. I didn't really know, nor did I have a playbook. And candidly, I it wasn't until I was actively in the interview process for Jump Capital that I realized that I was connected to folks in venture, and I just had never looked, right? But I know I said it jokingly, like have the conversation, but honestly, make it known to your friends and to your colleagues that you're interested in this industry because you never know who knows someone that you
Hmm.
can be connected to. There are so many different Slack communities that have permeated this industry that like we drop podcast recommendations, we drop candidate recommendations into these Slacks all over. So if we know someone that is looking to have coffee chats, we'll drop them in and people immediately get picked up for 4, 5, 6 of those conversations. So you can get more color and more understanding of what to do. But
Hmm.
beyond that, Nicole D. Tomaso, I hope I said her last name correctly. She's at Harlem Capital and she regularly posts about what she did to get to break into venture. And she also just shares really great and unique strategies on what you can do. So definitely like link up with her or follow her on LinkedIn because she posts regularly and it's really good information. The other thing is a newsletter that's called So You Want to Work in Platform. That one's fantastic. What I find there is like there's so many opportunities that are aggregated in that newsletter, and chances are, if you just kind of spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn, you will probably be connected via second or third degree to somebody that can answer some questions for you. And then the third thing is not a company, a newsletter called Next Play, which also includes VC jobs, but it also includes just like really cool sales, marketing, chief of staff opportunities that you could take within tech. And I've always thought that those were really wonderful and unique. And I think that's it. But yeah, this is a hard one. It's a hard one to answer because getting into this industry isn't nearly as easy as others.
Hmm.
And I think that in the past, we've had a lot of the journey often included a stint in consulting, right? But I like to be clear, I'm not an investor. I work in platform. There's a difference. I find that platform people, particularly really successful platform candidates and just teams are usually people that have had an opportunity to experience what the founder's experiencing, right? Like, not only are we empathetic, but we've walked a mile.
Hmm.
And we often come from like a varying background that helps inform our gut and our experience and skill, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that that really helps on the platform side. Um, yeah, yeah, but it's a really fun industry. It's also notoriously difficult. And for that, gosh, I'm sorry, but if you're interested, hit me up on LinkedIn. We can have a coffee
Yeah.
chat.
Absolutely. And I love the resources that you share too. Those are really great. The newsletters and just the shout out to Slack communities too. I think those are really helpful for people. And you just segued into my perfect next step, which I love that you gave a shout out to having people reach out to you on LinkedIn. And so, Ola, I would love to have you share where our listeners can find you online in case they'd like to connect. And perhaps whether if they're looking to get into platform or if they're a founder looking for investors, would love to share where people can reach you.
Gosh, find me on LinkedIn, connect, send me a message. I'm pretty responsive. Please give me like 2 days. I've had, I sometimes people get really antsy, and I'm like, my dude, it's Wednesday, and you messaged me on Monday night. Um, but give me about 2 days and I will always respond. I'm down for a coffee chat and I'm happy to talk more about my journey or just ideas, recommendations, etc. If you live in Chicago, holler at me if you know really good comics that I should see.
Love it.
Yeah, I'd love
Ola,
that.
this has been such a fun episode. Thank you so much for coming on Tech
Thank
Startup
you.
Network.
Bye, Ashley. This was a total pleasure.